president of CNI, and for 25 years, David has served neighborhoods throughout Chicago, various nonprofit and governmental capacities, including as a community organizer in North Lawndale and as superintendent of the Chicago Park District. So at CNI, David focuses on strategy and raising capital, helped lead and organize an effort to have Pullman declared a national monument. David has an undergraduate degree from Wheaton College and a master's in social science from the University of Chicago. He's also a member of the Millennium Reserve Steering Committee and on the Cook County Commission on Social Innovation. We are proud to have Mr. David Doig in the building. And, of course, y'all know the projects, the Walmart on 111th off the E-Way, the Whole Food Distribution Center behind it, the new Pullman Community Center right there, and the Gotham Greens, and new manufacturing coming to town, Ross. Even you played a part in Whole Foods, too, and you in Inglewood, you did Whole Foods, right? All right, so. And Mariano's in Bronzeville. So David Doig is, he's the biggest developer on the South Side, almost.
I don't know about that.
I
think the University of Chicago
might. That is true. But outside of them, David has done some amazing work. And so we also have Tom Tresser, who's an educator, organizer, creativity champion, a public defender, and fighter of privatization. He's been doing civic engagement and grassroots democracy for efforts for over 40 years. His first voter registration campaign was in 1972. Way before I was thought about when my mother was 2 years old. In 2008, he was a co-founder of Protect Our Parks, a neighborhood effort to stop the privatization of public space in Chicago. They also fight against Obama Center right now.
They are.
He was a lead organizer for No Game Chicago, an all-volunteer grassroots effort that opposed Chicago's 2016 Olympic bid. And he was named in 2014 a Purpose Prize Fellow by the Encore Foundation, which recognizes change agents over the age of 60. He don't look over 60, y'all, too.
No.
You cat's out of the bag.
Cat's out of the bag. He was named the Best of Chicago 2015 as the best activist in the interests of public defense by New City Magazine. And he published a book of short articles of local experts on how we can save and generate major revenue for Chicago. Chicago is not broke. Funding the city we deserve was made possible by a crowdfunding campaign that attracted 203 contributors. And to date, they've had 65 public meetings around the book and attendance over 2,300 people in the city of Chicago to talk about the city finances. So we are proud to have Tom Tresser and David Doig both on the show. Thank you guys for being here.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So let's talk about this first. Lincoln Yards. Lincoln Yards brought billions of dollars of subsidies to the north side, and they we created a district, a TIF district there to bring all this revenue. I mean, what is that going to do for Black and brown communities, David? David, you work with TIFs and bring a lot of projects to the south side. What does Lincoln Yards mean to you? Is it do you think that it should have been prioritized, and how would that benefit our communities?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak, to the specifics of the community. I mean, the community they had a number of community meetings. There was I know a lot of dissent. I think they went through the public process. Ultimately, it was approved this week. I think there were some aspects of it that make sense in terms of the use of TIF, and then I think there were other areas where they're really kind of pushing the limits of TIF. And I think when it relates to issues around public infrastructure and some of the site conditions, that's an appropriate use of TIF. We're using it for things like land acquisition and some of those kind of other soft costs,
right.
Paying for some of those things. That might not be a really complete or full use of TIF.
You think it's going to be enough affordable housing units?
My issue there is we need affordable housing all over the city.
Yeah.
And I think trying to force a lot of affordable housing in a relatively small area. I mean it's fine, but we got much bigger problems, as you well know, on the south and west side, where we have communities that have depopulated. So why are we trying to cram thousands of units on 40 acres when we have thousands of acres that need new housing and we need the population. We've seen, and as you know, on the south side where you have development, where things are getting done, crime goes down, education improves, and so our
gentrification happens too sometimes.
That's
why we need community benefits agreements.
Yeah,
right?
I think gentrification happens, no question. I think there are certain neighborhoods where that pressure is more severe than others. I think if you look at a lot of the west side and south side communities, I don't know that gentrification is the number one problem. I think depopulation has been the number one problem, and where communities have started to empty out, you've seen housing values go down, you've seen crime go up, you've seen schools close. So we've got to look really at ways to repopulate the city.
So back to Lincoln Yards. Tom Tresser, you're not a fan of TIFs.
No.
You actually want to abolish them. Correctly? Correct me if I'm wrong. So tell me how you feel about Lincoln Yards.
It's an act of economic warfare on the black community of Chicago. It's not it's indefensible in every sense of the word, legally, morally, fiscally, ethically, however you want to play it. We talk about two Chicagos, north of Roosevelt Road and south of Roosevelt Road. We talk about economic segregation, blockbusting, redlining, predatory lending, and other practices that have denuded and attacked our black communities, our black brothers and sisters, right up to this very day. So, yeah, it's a good question. Why do we need public subsidies for Lincoln Park, which just happens where I live? We're doing fine up there. Yeah. We don't. I mean, look, these guys, if they want to build, a skyscraper to the moon, that makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Exactly.
Where are these people going to come from? Where are these retail vendors going to come from? My wife and I just drove a few blocks from our home. We counted 22 empty storefronts. This is in the heart of Lincoln Park on Halstead. So these guys have delusions of grandeur, and they want to build thousands of units with whatever.
It's crazy.
Maybe they thought that Amazon was going to come to Chicago. Well, it ain't coming. Okay.
Thank God.
So you could say capitalism, do your thing, man. Roll the dice. Go for broke. Charge $1 million a unit. I don't care. But do not use public money for this crazy project. It's immoral. It's illegal. It's crazy. It doesn't meet the but-for tests. So that for your listeners, before you put a TIF on something, you got to do two things. You got to prove it's blighted. So, yes, there are things that are crumbling up there around Cortland, for sure.
Definitely ain't blighted.
But the thing is, you mean to tell me that you cannot get a loan? Remember, Keating Crown, one of the principals of Sterling Bay, is a billionaire.
Yeah.
His granddaddy was Lester Crown. I think there's a whole bunch of things named after the Crowns, the Crown Space Center and the Crown Museum or whatever. Those guys don't have enough money to foot the bill for whatever the heck they want to do.
Exactly.
Please give me a break. And it's all for my people, frankly, right? It has nothing to do with you guys. Now, that's just one. The other one is the so-called 78 along the river. Mm-hmm. Another crazy project, thousands and thousands of units. Where are they going to come from? Again, build it. Go for it. I don't care what you do. Do not use public money.
Dollars.
That's my bottom line.
You disagree? Agree with that, David?
I'm not going to debate like the merits of Lincoln Yards or the 78. I think.
Okay, but do you agree with TIF? TIFs
so I think there are
communities that aren't blighted.
Yeah, I have issues in communities that aren't blighted. I think there are appropriate.
Will Lincoln Yards be a blighted community in your eyes?
I think that's a questionable use of TIF. I'll say that. I'm not. I think there, as you highlighted, there are areas and certainly the infrastructure around Lincoln Yards. There are some blighted.
But David, here's the thing. Yes, that's the argument that they're using. They're saying this isn't the daily years when we're just handing over billions of dollars straight up to a developer who can, by the way, flip the property to make a profit and walk away with your public dollars. That's the secret dirty trick of TIFs.
Exactly.
We've acted as a public banker for half these developers, Tishman Spear, and God knows there's $840 million of TIF money sitting in the loop right now on a list of projects I can give to you. So the question is, all right, so it's not that. It's for the bridges. It's for the streetscape. It's for a new metro station. Except here's the thing that I have to stress. This is the tail wagging the dog. We don't have a plan for breathtaking prosperity for everyone in the city. What we have is clout-driven projects like gumball machines that pop out of the gumball machine, tasty little treats for clouded developers. So we don't say, let's step back and look at the city of Chicago and say, where do we need libraries?
Right.
Where do we need parks?
Yeah.
Where do we need?
I agree with you on that, Tom. I mean, you're right. We need a comprehensive plan. I will say this in terms of, and this may be getting a little in the weeds, but I think one of the issues that sometimes is missed on TIF is if there is no development, there is no TIF.
Right.
So. And I know, this is we can debate this, but I mean these TIFs that they're doing now are what they call pay as you go, right? So as development occurs, as taxes are generated, that money is then used to finance these public infrastructure. If it doesn't happen, there's no TIF, there's no bridge improvements, there's no road improvements. So
speaking
it's still public money. I'm not going to say it isn't, but it is being generated through the private development that is occurring on the site and in the TIF.
Yeah,
so speaking of TIFs, real quick, Tom. Now, my idea when I was running for mayor was that we abolish TIFs and come up with a new financial tool, right? That mine was downtown benefits everybody, and basically create these districts, and we now find other sources of revenue. For instance, a portion of the sales tax, a small percentage of development projects downtown. If we do a tax on the rich, like LaSalle Street, like how do we create a new fund? Now, Tom, you're against, you want to abolish TIFs. Then, if we abolish TIFs, what's going to be that new
first of all,
economic funding measure?
You've got $1.44 billion sitting in the TIF fund right now.
Right.
So let's start there, and let's liberate that money and put it to some kind of public discussion of where could we use $1.5 billion right this minute.
Right.
Is it opening up the old schools that were closed? I heard someone talk about clinics. Was this somebody in here was saying we need clinics? Let's do 10 storefront clinics like tomorrow.
Right.
Say it's $1 million per construction for each one, and say you need a staff of nurse practitioners, and you need to get some gear in there. So call it $2 million.
Right.
Okay, that's chump change.
Right.
Right. So we could do those kinds of things very quickly, and we're only scraping the surface. So let's take that 1.5 bill and let's put it to use right away. But then let's look at the other revenue sources that we're not. Let's eliminate corruption in the city of Chicago. Mm-hmm. That's $500 million a year, according to Dick Simpson.
Yep.
Let's stop paying off. Let's stop doing bad shootings. So let's have no shootings. How about that?
Right.
That then end up with in the court case.
113 million last year.
Yeah, we're up $600 million in the last 12 years. So we can't seem
more than that.
We can't seem to stop our police from shooting folk in this way, and then we take it to court and we pay off, and this is not good. It's not good for the city. It's certainly not good for the
and $100 million in overtime a year for police too. $100 million a year.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think, Jamal, you make a great point. We have not used sales tax TIFs in Chicago. It's allowed under Illinois law. There are other municipalities that have used sales tax. Mm-hmm. It's not a tool that we use. The other I think tool that we're starting to see come into focus, which I think has a lot of possibilities, are opportunity zones.
Yeah.
So this is and those areas money. Are like areas like Lincoln Park and in Edgewater and Uptown. They're not in. The opportunity zones are in the south and west side. So
right.
The temptation to use opportunity zone funds as they have TIF is not available. But I think opportunity zones could be a great tool for bringing private investment.
We're thinking too small. Mm-hmm. That's what I think. I think we guys are in the weeds with crumbs. We need a new deal for the city of Chicago. We need to think big, like they talk about the Green New Deal for America. We need the city to build its own rail cars. All right, this is my fantasy. All right, now
he's in Pullman where they started that,
We'd
right?
love to build rail cars.
All right. Look, we spent a few years ago $8 billion to Bombardier Corporation, which is a French company with a factory in Connecticut. So we need the rail cars, right? So what we did is we took $18 billion of our money, shipped it to France, and some of it dropped off in Connecticut. So why don't we just take the next time we're doing a rail car order, and it could be for light rail, it could be for electric buses, it could be, this is what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Let's build that factory in Pullman or Inglewood.
They're doing that. This next generation of rail cars that CTA awarded is a Chinese company, and they actually built a factory in Hegewisch.
They're coming towards my idea. It's still a Chinese company. But what I'd like
those are going to be going to be Chicagoans getting the jobs.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
That's excellent.
That's
so let's own the company,
right?
And let's hire up Chicagoans. Let's train them at the technical high schools and move them into the junior colleges so they can manage the fleet and drive the fleet and do all the programming around the fleet.
There you go.
Then then cut the CTA fare in half, so we have buses and trains all over the place. Then sell our excess capacity to other cities across the country at cost. So if it costs $1 million a bus or whatever, plus, but we'll sell it to San Jose for $500,000. But we'll put the names of all the Chicago workers on the side of the bus.
So let me just say this. If you want to call in, 312-374-8130. That's 312-374-8130. Now, David,
yes, sir.
You are, you look to try to develop and impoverish communities, right? Now, how do
I don't like the word impoverished.
Okay, give me a better word.
I think these are emerging opportunity areas.
Emerging opportunity areas. I like that. Now, these emerging opportunity areas somehow are not opportunity areas for black folks. So talk about development in these communities that then causes gentrification and depopulation, or whichever word you want to use. And how do we prevent that, keep people where they are? For instance, like the Obama Center. It's not a library. How do we keep people where they are in their homes?
Yeah, so, you touched on it earlier. every project we do, we have a community benefits agreement.
Good.
And we've made that standard practice. We did it with Walmart when we brought Walmart. It was the first and probably only community benefits agreement that they ever did. Walmart hired 400 people when they opened. 80% were from 60628.
Okay.
Right? So we made that a requirement, and they exceeded that. So you go to Walmart and Pullman, it's folks from the community.
I just need them to pay better.
Well, that's a good cause. We did the same thing with Method. We did the same thing with Whole Foods. We've done it with Gotham Greens. Every one of the deals has a community benefits agreement.
And you got new manufacturing that you guys just announced.
How many
jobs?
400,000 square feet. That's going to be another couple hundred jobs.
Okay.
So
right off 111th and
the Bishop Ford.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And so we're going to, that'll be another community benefits agreement, and we'll work with. We'll work with some of the local job training agencies, Metropolitan Family Services, Calumet Area Industrial Commission, to source those jobs. There are unbelievably talented people in the 9th and 34th and 10th wards, and they need an opportunity. And so
I agree.
I think that's where it starts. Is you've got to be intentional about when you're bringing companies that you're also holding them accountable and making sure that they're hiring from the community, and then going to the next level. We talk about what rebuilds communities. We've also got to promote home ownership. So we have a whole program where we've been buying and rehabbing old Pullman row houses. We've done 50, 60 of these homes, all focused on promoting home ownership and building wealth.
Right.
So you get a job, then you can start to afford a house. And our houses are incredibly well priced. You can buy one of our houses for $120,000, $130,000. We have people that are paying less in a mortgage than they were in rent.
Right.
And there's all kinds of first-time home buyer programs out there. Interest rates are low. This is the time to buy. And you can own for less than you rent.
So, promoting home ownership, getting people to buy homes, and community benefits agreements, I heard, making them higher from the people in the community. Tom, now you want to, you're talking about let's utilize the $1.4 billion that we got in TIFs, or do you say abolish and flush the TIFs and let them go back to the schools and the park districts?
I say abolish TIFs, flush the fund, and then replace it with a breathtaking, citywide, hands-on deck, economic development, prosperity, New Deal for Chicago, build the light rail cars, that kind of thing.
Do you create a new financial tool to replace that?
No, just put it in the budget. Plan for it. If you have to borrow to build it, go to the bond market, which is understood, or which is also in the book. My preference would be to set up a public bank for Chicago. We'll finance it ourselves.
Right.
So the chapter in the book was written by Amara Enya.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got some problems with the public bank. But,
you do?
Well, I got a few problems.
What would be the problem?
Well,
why not have the bank work for us instead of raping us?
No, I agree with the concept of public bank, but
okay.
I think it could be unrealistic when you're talking about startup capital and things of that sort.
Okay,
as far as getting it actually up and running.
Well, listen, let's have a conversation about it. Like I said before we went on the air, the book Chicago is Not Broke, which by the way is available at www.wearenotbroke.org.
Put it on
there. We've had 65 public meetings. Thousands of people have come out to talk about these ideas. They love the idea of a public bank because they've all been screwed over by their financial institutions. We've seen how these guys play it in our communities. So let's recirculate the money
sometimes
here.
It only works for certain cities, right? So like in North Dakota is a totally different city, totally different budget.
I think Englewood's bigger than North Dakota.
Englewood might be bigger than North Dakota.
All right.
So it's a more complex thing to do.
No
here
doubt.
in the
No
city,
doubt.
yeah.
But we got to start by talking about it, and then let's go to North Dakota and see how
And
they
talk about
did
it.
it, and bring it here.
I did my research on the campaign and talked to public bank experts
All
and that city as well as in California.
Cool.
And I think it's an idea that we should talk about.
It's the idea whose time has come. The new governor of New Jersey ran on that, and now he's implementing it. City of San Francisco is looking at it. The city of LA had a huge referendum. Right. Hundreds of thousands of people voted affirmatively for the public bank in LA. It wasn't enough to make it pass. So this is an idea whose time has come. It's just not being covered by the press, by the major media, dare I say, the white media. So you're not going to find an article about this in Crane Chicago Business, excuse me.
Right.
So we got to do it. We got to do an each one teach one. So people, if you're out there listening to us, email me at tom@civiclab.us, and we will come to you to explain this stuff and see what you make of it, because we've done 130 public meetings.
All right. So we're talking about what's the next neighborhood that developers and everybody's going to be focusing on next. All right. Lincoln Yards now got their TIF dollars and subsidies. Now, where are we going next?
Yeah, well, for us, we're part of the team that's going to be redeveloping the old Michael Reese Hospital site.
Okay.
And I think there we have a chance to really kind of reset some of the opportunities, and we're looking at some housing there, but what we're looking for more is office. We've got some concepts around of life sciences and creating some live workspaces. So that I think if you look at where development is happening, the Michael Reese site is really the next. It's the gap between basically the South Loop and Hyde Park. And
what we're not talking about, we're talking about big development projects, but what about the small businesses? We need the small businesses to sustain communities, right?
Absolutely. No, and I think that's an area that we've focused a lot on. You mentioned in your lead-in that we have a micro lending fund, and we've made over 150 loans to small neighborhood
businesses. How much is all that together?
That's about $3 million.
Okay.
So, and these are loans of our average loan size is about $18,000.
Okay.
So, and we've got a default rate of less than 6%.
Okay.
So
good.
It's
That's good.
we've got a good track record. And these are all your typical small businesses, your auto repair shops, your little cafes, moving companies. We've finance Uber drivers.
Can I get $50,000 right now?
You got a business plan?
Yeah, I got the business. Crime Chaser needs $50,000 right now. He tried to open up something right now, y'all.
We've got some great success stories. We've got a wonderful vegan soul food restaurant in South Shore called Majani's that we financed.
Yeah, 71st. That's funny because I was with
Chef Tazaki Emanuel.
Yeah. And somebody I had food from him today, right in front of me. Yeah.
Great barbecued cauliflower.
Yeah, but cauliflower. What's some other businesses? You got any more?
We've got we had a little contracting company that we financed that actually made Inc.'s Fast 5000 list.
Nice.
And we've had some other restaurants, Lane's Bakery, and
nice.
Others that have done very well. And we've got a lot of service companies. We were one of the first to finance CK Engineers.
Nice.
So she's a small women-owned business that does civil engineering.
So he plugged his book. Where can they can they go to get information on
our lending?
that?
It's cnimfg.org, cnimfg.org, and Erica King is the president of that organization and does a great job providing capital. Now, most of these are expansion loans. We've done some startups, but most of them focus around helping business expand.
So how do we help business expand, Tom? Outside of TIFs and what like the NOF fund, right? Isn't that a bunch of garbage?
Well,
to you?
It's chump change. I mean, so inside the TIF program, there's the small business improvement funds, or sometimes they call them SPIFs.
Okay.
It's also called the neighborhood improvement funds. I think that was for homeowners. Mm-hmm. The SPIFs are for businesses. I think if you put all those things together, a couple hundred grants, it might be $40 million.
Yeah.
TIFs have liberated $8 billion. That's $8 billion since TIFs started under Howard Washington in the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
So this is part of a larger conversation about the 1% taking from the 99%. That's all TIFs are. So scratch it off your radar screen, guys. Really, So if you want to go big, take $100 million from that fund, the 1.4
and invest in a small business.
Put it right into these things here. So you'll not have 150 microloans, you have 150,000 microloans.
There you go. We're going to talk about it after this break. We're going to go to a commercial so we can pay the bills. We'll be back. What's up? It's J Mark. All right. Thanks for joining us here on the late hour. Thanks to everybody watching and everybody tuning in on Facebook Live on several pages, and everybody watching. You can call in if you got a question for David or Tom here when we're talking about the city finances on how to get them in our communities. This is a big problem. You know, we got communities of color that have been disinvested in for so many years, and we need to build them up. The call-in number is 312-374-8130. That's 312-374-8130. Crime Chaser is still in the building. Crime Chaser got a question for David and Tom.
All right, guys. You notice the 50 schools that was closed in our community, which I'm an African-American male, suggested, I think I heard Dr. Willie Wilson say this, we can turn some of those vacant schools into like trade centers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how do we use those vacant schools when you're talking about, if you believe in TIFs, so when you talk about TIF dollars.
You could use TIF, you could use opportunity. A lot of them are in the opportunity zones. I think there are other other sources. We use a program called New Market Tax Credits to finance a number of our projects. But there are tools, there are historic tax credits. So those schools could be repurposed into trade centers. There's been talk of making them into having other kinds of artist housing and live workspace. You could do affordable rental housing there. I think it's definitely something that needs some creativity and unfortunately, I think they closed them without a plan. And
they definitely closed them with 50 schools at one time.
I think there was a plan. I think the plan has been
there you go.
Been in place since 100 years, just to get the poor black people out of here.
Yeah, there you go.
Get those neighborhoods ready for the gentry. I mean, come on, let's be real, Jamal.
I agree.
You had the two dailies, and then you had Emmanuel pushing a plan to destabilize communities of color. Move them the hell out of there and take their shit over. Or I can't say that on. Take their stuff over.
You said it already.
Take it back.
There you go, real quick. All right, we got a few callers. Hey, Al, line one. What's up? Talk to me. All right, we missed Al. Crystal, line two. What's up, Crystal?
Hi, I was calling to ask David a question. Do you guys deal with not-for-profits?
We on our micro lending, no, we do not finance nonprofits. There are other groups out there that finance nonprofits. Two in particular. One is the Chicago Community Loan Fund, CCLF, and the other is Illinois Facility Fund, IFF. Both of them focus on financing and funding nonprofits. We focus ours on small for-profit businesses.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
All right. We got. Did we get Al back? All right. So back to the abandoned schools. We got so much property. Why don't the Obama Center look at Harold Washington or some city property or a different neighborhood?
Oh, don't go there now.
Yeah, I mean, Tom. I mean,
well,
let's be real.
Well, I helped start an organization called Protect Our Parks.
Yes.
You can find it online at protectourparks.org. We started to stop the privatization of Lincoln Park. We sued the Latin School and the Park District in 2008, and we won that in a strange way. When no one thought we had a chance, they were privatizing Lincoln Park for the benefit of the wealthiest school in Chicago. So the principle is, do you use public stuff, and this includes TIF dollars, to benefit the privileged and the few? It's a very simple moral political question. And I say no. The parks belong to the people and should always remain open and free. Now we go down south to Jackson Park, and Obama, he's a multimillionaire now with his deal with Netflix and whatnot.
Jesus.
Okay, and on the board of the Obama Foundation are not one, not two, but three billionaires who between them could buy anything, anywhere in the city of Chicago, including the Michael Reese Hospital site and any other place that you care to mention. buy it on the open market, do what you want with it, but you do not get to use public dollars and public land. There's going to be a $200 million
$200 million, right, for infrastructure.
Infrastructure. That's a gift to us.
Yeah.
So we're giving the guy priceless land, and we get to pay $200 million for it. That's $200 million. That's not going to the schools. It's not going to the health clinic.
And no community benefits agreement on top of that.
He's a shrewd operator. He doesn't want to have his hands tied. So we look the other way. The Chicago Community Trust created an organization overnight and gave Reverend Brazier and Arnie Duncan $250,000 just like that. Now they're speaking, so to speak, for the community and fronting this scam. So there you have it. I mean, I'm just saying, folks out there, if you think this thing is going to benefit you, small business owner, small restaurant owner, you're smoking crack. The people who go to that center aren't going to come to your small restaurant. They're going to eat on the site. And there you have it. And maybe the jobs will be selling tickets. I don't know.
I love Tom is raw like Martin, raw live.
I need that common question.
Keep your fingers crossed, though. I could be wrong.
All right, so
quick question. Can I just?
Go ahead.
It's real simple.
Yeah.
What do you think about since the parks are free? You said, why are we being charged for parking at the parks?
Well, the parks are free, but the parking spaces are a source of revenue. So, again, we go the wrong direction. We're getting revenue from the folks in the most regressive ways possible with red light cameras, parking meters, plastic bag taxes, soda taxes. We're not taking the money in progressive ways. This is just another bad way.
So, David, back to the Obama Center. I know you may not feel as radical as that, right? How do we push them to sign a community benefits agreement? You said all of your projects are community benefits agreement.
Yeah.
Would you, if you were the mayor, say, well, if you don't sign a community benefit agreement, I'm gonna be against it, or what?
Yeah, I think there's opportunities for community benefits. I think that it should have a community benefits agreement. I think that's important for the community in terms of holding people accountable. If you in these community benefits agreements can vary. I mean, some are focused around jobs, some focus more on other economic benefits. Some are more, sharing profits with the community. There's lots of different ways you can structure these things, but you've got to have some standards for accountability so that like Tom said, okay, if you're going to promote small businesses, how are you going to know if you ultimately help those people unless you have some goal that you can look at and say, we want to start 500 new businesses. Well, let's make that part of the benefit and go back a year, 2, 3, 5 years from now and say, did we accomplish it?
Why won't he sign one?
Let's get him on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and honestly, it helps. We've had companies that we've worked with, and it's actually they come back and say that was helpful because then they know what they're shooting for. It's not one of these amorphous we have to hire from the community. It's like, no, there's a goal. This is what you got to work for. We did this on the Marianos. We had a goal of hiring 100 CHA residents, CHA residents for the 300 jobs. We exceeded that. We hired 103 community residents.
Speaking of CHA, we got Outgill Gardens. You're in Pullman,
Yep.
But in the further south part of the ward, you got what, tens of 20,000 residents.
I don't know if it's that many.
How many residents is it?
I think it's probably closer to 5,000-6,000, but whatever.
No, it's a little more than that. But what I will say, if you combine, especially the neighbor, the Outgill Gardens, and then further down you have another complex. They don't have a grocery store.
Yeah.
Rosebud has been closed for 6, 7, 8 months.
Yeah.
CHA has been busing them to your Walmart on 111th to get groceries. What do we do?
Yeah.
Why are we getting them to Walmart? Why don't we have a?
Yeah, I think the decision, whoever made the decision to locate Altgeld where they did, that was a very intentional decision to get people as far away
from the city
and basically put it in what is an industrial area, right? So that in and
Talk
of itself
was
was a fundamentally wrong planning decision.
Right.
So now to come back and say, well, now we've got to bring retail, we've got to bring those things. It's just it makes it very difficult because it's already you've already basically got the community planned and you've basically segregated that part of the city and
But we got what? Well, we got the water.
Water reclamation.
The water reclamation district right across the street.
And then you got the Ford Motor plant. On the other side. It's surrounded by industry.
So what do we do with those people? We got thousands of people there.
I think honestly
that have to be busting your Walmart to get groceries. What do we do?
I think we've got to look for opportunities for creating. Maybe it's not a full size like a Walmart or something, but certainly a smaller grocery store, other kinds of neighborhood businesses, restaurants, those kind of things. But I think what is even more important than that is we've got
inside Outgill Garden.
Inside or around could be. I mean, there's space on if you go further east, further west. But I also think we've got to focus on jobs, right? So, like the first thing is we've got to make sure that folks in Altgeld have access to jobs at Ford and jobs at those new industries, like the Chinese rail car plant that's just down the highway from them.
Well, let's go back to my call for more public. So let's train folks to build the red line. Let's build the red line. What are we waiting for? I think the people in Pullman have been waiting for the red line for 30 years.
We love it.
But we're going to do Lincoln Yards first. We're going to do the 78 first. We're going to do the useless flyover on Belmont. That's $500 million. I don't know what that's going to do.
What are they flying over?
They're flying over each other. This is to save the yuppies like 3 minutes of waiting time.
Will an Elon Musk deal go through or what?
That's going to be under the ground.
Under the ground.
So we're looking at all the wrong places for these big bets, and the red line's been staring us in the face for all this time. Yeah. So if we need to go to the bond market, let's do it tomorrow, or let's flush the TIF funds and use that as a down payment on the red line. But let's think ahead. Let's make sure that you have people from the community trained up in the trade so they can get to work right away on the various construction jobs needed to build a red line.
So what do you do?
What are we waiting for?
What's the first step to abolishing TIFs?
The mayor calls the guy into her office and says, "Draft me the legislation."
Yeah, she can do an executive. It can be by executive.
No, I think it's going to require city council.
It has to go to the council. But
so how do you get that city council support, knowing that most of them won't be for it?
Well,
especially the ones we have now.
This is what a leader does. They lead and they educate. So it depends on how Lori feels about it, how Mayor-elect Lightfoot feels about it. If she thinks that this is wrong, then she's got to come out and educate and lead and use her powers to take the aldermen who are on the fence and bring them to her. There's 7 new aldermen that were in the street.
Right.
They were in the street, 2 days ago. We don't need to persuade them. Plus the other 10 so-called progressive aldermen.
We need 26. We ain't close.
That's 17.
We're gonna need another election cycle.
Well, all right. Then if you're in the South, if you can hear this broadcast, get ready for 2023.
There you go. Now, David, you supported. Did you support Lori Lightfoot for the runoff?
I did.
Okay.
I did, yes.
Okay. So you supported Lori Lightfoot for runoff. Would you push her to abolish TIFs, or do you think that we should work with them a little bit more?
I think there are certainly TIFs that probably need to be abolished, either because there hasn't been any
certain districts.
TIF districts.
Okay.
But I also think there are areas where TIFs, like we've seen in Pullman and on other areas on the south side, where TIFs have been a necessary tool in developing and redeveloping neighborhoods. I mean, I think when you look at we haven't talked about this, but the whole USX site. I mean, that's a site that needs redevelopment. 560 acres. I mean,
Jesus.
It's bigger than all of Lincoln
Huge.
Park. It's bigger than all of downtown.
Yes.
The only way that's going to get redeveloped is you're going to have some TIF and some opportunity zones and all kinds of funding to be able to move that forward. Because that place, it's got environmental issues, it's got access issues. You've got
old U.S. Steel.
Old U.S. Steel. Yeah, I mean they've got mountains full of slag.
Yeah.
That cover the whole site that has to be remediated before you could even start to think about developing new stuff there. So I mean I'm not saying that every TIF is perfect and it should remain in place. I think there are those, but I also think there's TIF where it's needed.
How many TIF dollars have you guys used
We've
for
used
development
31
projects?
million.
31 million in TIF dollars for development projects. What are and there were what Mariano's in Bronzeville? You got TIF dollars?
We didn't use a nickel of TIF on the Marianas. We didn't use any public financing. That was all private. We used about 10 million of TIF at the 63rd and Halstead Whole Foods, and then in Pullman we've used it on the Method project. We used it on Whole Foods. We're using about 3 million of that on Gotham Greens now.
Okay.
But remember, this is
Walmart.
all
Walmart didn't get
no. We didn't. No.
All private.
To Tom's point, Walmart didn't need TIF.
Good.
Well, I'd like to make another point that's it's not exactly a TIF point, but it's speaking to the new mayor. Mayor Lightfoot, I think you need to be a leader in, and this is going to sound crazy, in demilitarization of the U.S. government. I mean, we're talking here about chump change. $31 million in a city like Chicago to counteract 100 years of racism and segregation ain't going to get the job done. Even if we liberate the one,
we're trying, Tom. We're trying.
Yeah, but it ain't gonna. It's not going to happen in our lifetimes. We got to think way big out of the box. So, Mayor, listen to me. Go to your sisters and brothers, other mayors of big cities, Rust Belt cities, major cities, blue cities. I'm begging you, get your fellow mayors to go to Washington and cut the military budget in half, and let us keep our own federal money. You know, Chicago and Illinois loses about $8 billion every year in transfers that we're sending down to the South, where the military bases are and the contractors are. That's our tax money that goes to Washington and then doesn't come back here for these projects that you're speaking of.
For Trump's military.
They're going to build the wall.
Build the wall.
So even though it sounds really far afield, like, what are you saying, that the mayor should go to Washington and lobby? Yes, that's what we need to do in order to really solve these problems at a fundamental level.
So she went to Springfield. Now she got to go to Washington next.
That's right. She's got to get her traveling shoes on.
You agree with that, David?
I think we spend way too much money on the military every year. There's no question about that.
Why not? You don't like endless wars? You don't want the wall to be built?
I just think I think our we've got some serious issues in how we spend our money and what the priorities are, and I think that there are a lot more appropriate and certainly investing in this country first in building our own infrastructure. We have a crumbling infrastructure
That's right.
in America.
We get a D minus from the American Society of Civil Engineers across the country. There's about $3 trillion in back due bills to build. Not to mention the lead pipes in our own. So we're poisoning our own children, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. So we are winding down on an hour. This has been an amazing discussion with David Doig and Tom Tresser. I want you guys to give me a final 30-second comment on how do we move forward the city and get these neighborhoods, economic development. How do we get small businesses involved? What do we do next?
So my big idea, if you want to call it that, it's not as big as Tom's, but the city owns 14,000 vacant lots across the city, 14,000. In Philadelphia, they had 10,000. They were losing population. About 10 years ago, the mayor of Philadelphia said, we're going to give developers, home builders, we're going to give you land for free. We're going to freeze the taxes for 10 years. We're going to cut the hookup fees, and we're going to relax the building code. Philadelphia has built 10,000 units of new housing in the last 10 years on those vacant lots. And Philadelphia, which was losing population, is now starting to gain population.
We need new housing.
We need new housing. We need to take those 14,000 vacant lots, build 2 flats, build 3 flats, bring people back to these neighborhoods so that then you can support the schools and the retail and create more taxes.
All right, Tom Tresser.
All right, listen to me. Foundations, MacArthur, Chicago Community Trust, Joyce Foundation. Take your assets and buy all the homes that are underwater in the city of Chicago and give them away to our good people who got screwed through generations of racism and whatnot and predatory lending. Let's just give the folks the homes that were taken from them. We solved the homeless process in like 5 minutes.
All right, so this has been an amazing discussion. I want to thank David Doig, president of CNI, as well as Tresser, the author of Chicago's Not Broke. And you can go and get that book where?
www.wearenotbroke.org.
And if you are a small business, you can go to CNI.
CNIMFG.org.
All right, to learn about the microloan fund. Thank you so much for joining the Bum Radio Show. We'll be back in the next hour.
One of the first words